It's really wonderful to be here, and it's great to welcome everyone back from lunch. My name's Benson Saulo. I'm a descendant of the Wemba Wemba and Jadowa Jali, Wirragai and Gunditjmara nations of Western Victoria, as well as New Ireland Province in Papua New Guinea. But I was really fortunate actually to grow up in Tamworth in New South Wales on Gomeroi country. And the reason why we have the Milky Way kind of circling in the background there is I wanted to share a brief story before I introduce my guest. It's around the Warrnambool. So the Gomeroi people, their word for the Milky Way, or what is known as the Great River in the Sky, is the Warrnambool. And the story says that when we were growing up, we were surrounded by some amazing elders that were the first in their families to set up our legal systems, our medical systems, and our childcare systems as well up in Tamworth. And they used to tell us a story about the Warrnambool. And it said that when we pass away, our spirits return to the Great River in the Sky. And we camp by the fires that have been lit by our ancestors. And if you've ever had a chance to get out of the concrete jungles that are our major cities and looked up on the Milky Way or the Warrnambool, it does look quite smoky as it runs through the night sky. And it says that we sit there and we reflect on the life that we've just had, those late night philosophical conversations, those deep and meaningful connections that we've had with friends, family and loved ones. And when it's our time to return back into this cycle of life that's been going for 30,000, 40,000, 60,000 years, we come in the form of shooting stars and we lay within Mother Earth. And then when you're born, it's not so much this idea of conception, it's more around this idea that your spirit chooses who you're meant to be in the time that you're meant to exist. And as a young person being told that story almost on repeat, almost to the point where you're like, all right, uncle, we got it, the Warrnambool. It really sets up this notion of this sense of purpose, or this sense of place even, and this sense of urgency that the people that we meet along the way, the people that we share those fleeting moments as you pass in the street, are on that same cycle, that we share the same short moment in life. It also sets up this idea that the challenges that we face from a local through to a global level are the challenges that we're meant to face. But it also acknowledges that maybe it's not always our time to be able to solve these wicked problems that continually impact lives around the world, that maybe it's our role to actually progress that just that little bit further for that next generation as they're coming through to pick up the arms and move forward as well. And I think it's a really powerful notion of that sense of purpose and place and the circularity that is life. And when I think about the role that we play in our daily lives, the interactions that we have, and the challenges that we're meant to face, it gives me great hope in working with young people and connecting with young people right across the world, that they share a same passion and this understanding that now is the time for action, and it's our place to actually to make a difference in the lives of those that we come into contact with. And what's really important in regards to how we as a society support young people is actually being able to invest and support young people's passion, their commitments, but then also being able to invest in their life's journey and that circulation, that circle of life that kind of continues to be able to progress issues in our times. And so as we continue to talk in the vein of investing in the future change makers, I'd now like to introduce our next speaker, who has been listed in Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 for social entrepreneurship, was the recipient of the EY Entrepreneur of the Year, and is a former Australian of the Year, Young Australian of the Year. He's an entrepreneur, he's a philanthropist, and he's also a marketing maverick. Please welcome to the stage co-founder and managing director of Thankyou, Daniel Flynn. Well, mate, it's really good to see you again.
Good to see you.
It's been a number of years when we've known each other for, well, really, I think when you first started Thankyou, when you were 19 years old. It'd be great for Daniel to share a little bit about that journey that you've been on at Thankyou, and maybe some of the lessons, and we'll pick up those as we continue the conversation.
Awesome. Hey, so good to be here. Did everyone have a good lunch? Yep. Awesome. I didn't get to it, so I'm getting to food straight after this, I'm hoping. But I remember starting here in Melbourne, and I think this is an incredible city of great innovation, social entrepreneurship. But at 19, I didn't know that. I actually just felt overwhelmed. I saw a problem in our world, extreme poverty. At the time, it was the world water crisis. Today, it's over the 719 million people living in extreme poverty. And I remember having this feeling like, man, poverty is so big. To me, it feels so complex. But at the same time, I saw another number. The number we spend as consumers on product. Today, it's grown a bit. Collectively, we are spending $63 trillion a year. That's a lot. And I had this idea, imagine if there was a way to get money from that. The money that we're already spending on consumer product, and we could get it to right this wrong. And the first idea we had was to launch a product called Thankyou water. For those that know it, it was in the market for a while, and we dropped it, and now we're known for our hand wash and body wash and over 70 other products. But for me, it just started with an idea of seeing the world differently, and then I discovered how hard it is to create change. There are many stories and setbacks. I think this one sums it up, and I had a chance at lunch to share a bit of our journey and our setbacks. 5 years into our story, Coles and Woolworths had said no to us. If you don't know, in Australia, they're the two biggest supermarkets. And this summed up the great challenge, I think, for any young change maker, which is you have an idea and a dream, but you do need to get buy-in. Maybe it's in corporate, maybe it's in philanthropy, maybe it's at scale, but you need that buy-in, and we weren't getting it. Every retailer was saying no. The big supermarkets were the same. And as a team, we sat back and thought, well, they've said no. The system says no yet again. Is there another way? And I remember we built a campaign here in Melbourne. We plotted this idea. And one Wednesday morning, we hit play on the video. And the video said, hey, everyone, for 5 years, the two biggest supermarkets have said no to our products. But that's okay, because 2 weeks from today, we're presenting to both of them. And we asked consumers to jump onto their Facebook wall to say, hey, if they stock Thankyou products, I'd buy it. Now, I'm not sure if anyone in this room was part of that campaign, but if you were, thank you, because it worked. People sung, danced, rapped, uploaded their support, and we had 2 helicopter pilots who donated their time, which is my favorite part. They donated their time to fly a helicopter in Melbourne and one in Sydney, both with these 20,000 square foot signs that said, Dear Coles, Dear Woolworths, thank you for changing the world, in brackets, if you say yes. Went around the head offices for half an hour. Media covered it, and a long story short, they said yes. And that knockback and setback became a go, and the rest is history.
Well, just picking up on the knockback and setbacks, because these are hard. When you are passionate about a cause and you're coming up against the naysayers, and I'm really curious as to what are those elements of resilience that you've been able to build, and I guess for a young change maker who's stepping into the unknown, how does someone build resilience in the face of no's?
So at the beginning, people would often say to myself or my co-founders, you guys are pretty naive. Which is like when you Google naive, it's like, that's not nice. Like, that's not a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
Like, you're really naive. And like we were, like one of my co-founders, Justine, we'd been dating for 1 month and we started Thankyou. And people are like, that's high risk. And we're like, nah, we're in love, And we're married now, we've got 2 kids, it's worked out. But we had this beautiful naivety to everything. We'd sit down with people and we'd say, we're going to give 100% of our profit. There'll be no investors and there'll be no shareholders. And people in business were like, how does that work? Where would you get the money from? And we're like, we're not sure. In the back of my head, I wanted to say, from you, could you donate it? But we had this naivety and this curiosity, which on reflection, we didn't feel good about. If I had a chance to talk to my younger self, I'd be like, embrace it. It's the secret. Because we started asking things that maybe you don't usually ask for, questioning, wondering, coming up with things that then in time we find ourselves sharing at events, these incredible ideas that we launched that really was just, we didn't know what we're doing. We asked questions that others wouldn't ask. We found a path forward. You ask that question like, how do you build resilience? It's a big one, but I think the short answer, and you could talk for an hour on this, but when you know why you do what you do, and you're driven not by product or brand or fame, or you read out some awards at the start, when it's not about any of that and it's about a mission, you'll get up and go again and again and again. And that alone should be enough, but I don't think it is. I think you need people around you. If I was a founder, we would not be sitting here. I'm a co-founder. There are days where actually Justine quit, but I didn't. And then there were days that I quit. Like, we'd write these resignation emails to each other. Just a little window into our relationship. But like, luckily we never quit on the same day. And what I mean by that is, like, we were able to help each other through. Same with Jared. Same with mentors and advisors. And it's easy to say out loud, don't walk alone, but it's like the most mission critical path to resilience. Because sometimes you need someone who believe in you, encourage you. Other times, in fact, I had a mentor once at the start when it was really hard and it wasn't working. I told him everything. And it was bad. We'd had 2 retailers copy a concept, someone else back us and they went bankrupt. And like, issue after issue, and I thought I'd get sympathy. Instead, he said, Daniel, I think you need to toughen up. I was like, this is the wrong mentor. This is horrible. But actually, on reflection, he was right. I had this idea that because of our mission, it would get easy, and his view was, no, it's business, this is hard. So I think we build resilience not alone, but we build it grounded on purpose.
Yeah. And I guess the element there of how you engage investors is really critical. And for any startup, cash is king, but it's also about engaging the right capital as well. Can you talk a little bit about your journey and I guess even what you wish you knew when you're going out and speaking to investors and ensuring that you're engaging the right investors that built that kind of bought into the mission, but then understood the journey that you'll have to be on?
Yeah, look, this is a big question, because for us at Thankyou, we took a different path. We took a very much a bootstrapped path. We had no major investment. In fact, the very beginning was a philanthropic donation. 2 businessmen, I think, couldn't believe that we'd gone and got an order for 50,000 bottles. We had a factory lined up, but we had no money to do any of this. And they were like, that's how you're doing it. And we said, we need $20,000, and they gifted that. And that small philanthropic investment was very catalytic to our story. And actually, those sales that we landed ended up funding the next step and the next step. And so we've used catalytic philanthropic investment at key moments in our story to help grow us. I can look back at Thankyou and say we have been the most cash-strapped startup, and we should have just gone for some kind of different investment model and got a lot of money. But I think there's a great tension and a great warning to every innovator, every young leader, but often great innovation comes from restriction. And so money, whilst we think it's going to solve everything, it's helpful and it is needed in time. But I think sometimes it's what you don't have that can really, really help you refine the mission or the idea or the way that you're going to market that. And so when I look back over 15 years and think, okay, we've got tiny amounts of money, like in total about $3 million of philanthropic investment, some from big foundations, but if you know our story, much of that $3 million came from a book we launched called Chapter 1, a way for our customers, maybe some of you in this room, to buy a book and fund our future. And we explained the future of our organization to our consumers, and we asked people to buy it and back it. And millions of dollars were sold, and we made great profit for the future. And I look at right now, we've generated $18.1 million that we've given to our impact partners around the world. So that philanthropic investment has gone a very, very long way. And at Thankyou, we've fought to keep this model, which is a little bit different to traditional investment, and we're open to impact investment and beyond. But I think my message probably here today is we need investment. We definitely need investors that are mission aligned, not like verbally mission aligned, but heart mission aligned, and willing to take risk, because any journey like this is very risky.
Yeah. So you mentioned a bit around kind of impact investors, and the way that First Australians Capital is an Indigenous-led investment fund, we don't view the impact happening with us. It's actually what we're able to enable. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of define impact, but then also how you might be enabling it throughout the world?
Yeah, so look, we define impact in a few ways. Point one, our business is owned 100% by our charitable trust. We've set that up with one mission to help see the end of extreme poverty. And our role is a funder, and so we make the money and we work hard at that, and then we give grants. And so in one sense, half of what we do is grant making to change makers and it's philanthropic grants to other charities and NGOs who are working to end extreme poverty. So for us, that is our kind of core driver around impact. But we're also acutely aware that how we make product and how we engage with consumers has an impact on people and planet. And so that's actually been one of the most challenging, actually, if I'm honest, and exciting parts of the impact that we can make as an organization. One example, if you know our story, we did start in bottled water, and we naively thought, how hard could it be to have a very sustainable option? At the time, there's biodegradability and a bunch of stuff, and we naively thought, we'll be able to jump to that, and the rest will be, off into the sunset. But it turned out, when you're mission-driven and you look at full life cycle analysis of some of the technology, it fell in the greenwash bucket. And that's tricky, because some people will be like, that's amazing, sounds good, but those who really knew know this isn't better. In fact, in many cases, it's a worse alternative. And so we made a decision to pull out of bottled water, and we pulled it off the shelf at 7-Eleven, Coles, Woolies, and everyone was like, what are you doing? We're like, well, as a mission-led organization, we've made a decision around the impact that we want to leave on this world and what responsible consumerism really is. So the best path forward for that product was the end, and we launched others. And so I think, how do we define impact? It's in the profits we give, it's in the products we make, but it's also in how we encourage and shape consumerism. And then there's the stuff that we never thought would make an impact. Like during lunch, someone came up to me from the Philippines. I'm so sorry, I have forgotten your name in this moment. But he came up saying he read the book in 2018, chapter 1. He was reading it in the Philippines, and it's been pivotal to his story and coming here. I'm like, wow. I think there is an unintended impact when you and all of us head out on our path. It's the impact we make, but maybe the encouragement that it can give others too.
Well, I'm interested in that conscious consumer element where you were really appealing for kind of purpose and mission, people that are driven by a purpose and a mission. What's one of the biggest lessons or learnings out of that, and the psychology that drives society around making these conscious decisions?
Okay. Who in this room, just as a quick show of hands to help keep us all energized, who would make a decision, like a purchase decision for a consumer product based on sustainability? Who would say sustainability is a driver? Fantastic. All right, hands down, this is a good room. Okay, now I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up for the next one, but the data would say, and the data would be wrong for this room, but the data says that I think it's 76 or 79% of consumers would say sustainability drives a purchase decision. Post-purchase research shows it was only 9% of consumers that were actually driven by that. That's a hard reality. This room would be fundamentally different, but I think there's an intention in most of humanity to say, we want to do good, let's go. But there's a whole bunch of other issues around price, ease of use, and that is the hard reality. And so for us, as a mission-led organization, we have had to walk this tension between the Thankyou we believe and the Thankyou we see, and where consumers are today. And our job is to help lead. How do we get that 9% number up? I remember we launched our most sustainable range ever. It was a plastic-free range of personal care products. It didn't work. It was the most sustainable thing we ever made. Got it launched in every retailer in this country. It got deleted from every retailer in this country because it wasn't performing. Mm-hmm. The other stuff performed better. And for us, that was a huge investment. That's hard. Are we giving up? No. We've gone another way. We've relaunched, if you're following our story. And I think our mission is, how do we find a way? But it isn't easy, and I think you have to be willing to grapple with tension. This is one of the many tensions we grapple with. Absolutely,
and I think you're absolutely right. I think this audience would be skewed in the favour. But I guess then, what is the call to action to an audience like this that are going? We used to talk about this notion of you can change culture for an hour, you can't change it in an hour. So what do you reckon is a call to action for everyone in this room as they leave today?
I feel like, we all put our hand up because that's the world that we're part of and the world that we see. Yes, statistically, 9% of another room would put its hand up, and that is a disappointment, but it's up to us as innovators, as pioneers, as change makers to keep going, but I think we have to be bolder than ever. We have to take big steps. The moonshots, they should come from this room and rooms like this, and if we keep doing that, I think over time culture will change.
Amazing. Dan, Flynn, thank you so much for all your advice and insights today. Let's give him a round of applause.